I now call George Adam to be followed by Alison Johnson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I too welcome the debate on this consultation. I won't try and say it because, as Margaret McDougall showed, it's quite a mouthful to say during the debate. But I will agree with Margaret McDougall when she says it is extremely important that we get this correct, because it's too important, because it can make such a radical difference in all our communities. I'll also come from a perspective similar to Anne McTaggart's, from a local authority point of view, because of my own personal experience within the Renfrewshire Council. But one thing I will say to all the members who have expressed some doubt over the consultation and where we're going with it, when Derek Mackay, the Minister, says, Presiding Officer, that potentially this is the biggest transfer of power since devolution itself, I can assure you he means it. Not just saying that as the Minister's pal on the back benches. I'm also saying it because I've worked with him for years and know that Derek Mackay is an individual who actually believes in getting facts, action and ensuring that we get results. So he is not one for dealing in hyperbole in general. My own time in local government showed me how important community empowerment was. And in particular, in Renfrewshire Council, we created the local area committees. And during that time, you had a situation as one of the conveners where you had to ensure that you had the community involved and wanting to actually turn up at your meetings. Now, it can become very dry, sitting there for 3 hours going through what is effectively a council meeting. But you had to make sure that people had the involvement and the vision was there. So we had the General Fund, Common Good Fund and various legacy funds. But without the vision and idea from the community, you had nothing, because once the money was gone, nobody would turn up. EastEnders and Coronation Street would win, and you'd be sitting in an empty council chamber with no one else to talk to. So what we had to do was ensure that we could get a vision and programme together. Now, one of the things we've talked about, and I've mentioned in the past, was an outdoor gym, £20,000 pensioners' play park. Now, that seemed silly at the start, but now it's used constantly. That same park had a tennis court that had not had investment for some time. We managed to get £220,000 from Tennis Scotland to ensure that young people in the south end of Paisley could play a sport that they would not have had access to before in the past. Now, that's what community empowerment is about, and it's not just about the councillors or the council telling, or politicians in general telling the public what to do, because you'll lose. It's like Margot MacDonald was trying to hint at earlier on, if you do not encourage the public and use their ideas, they'll walk away and they won't get involved. So it's about members of the public gaining that empowerment and thriving, and that's one of the things that I've always tried to push forward myself. Yes, I will.
Margaret MacDonald.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I was very impressed to hear that in Paisley they're playing tennis these days. It used to be TIG with aches, they said. However, I would like to know who looks after the tennis facilities. Is there a council watchman? Is it the people themselves? Who looks after them?
George Adam.
I'm glad Ms MacDonald brought that up, because that was part of my speech I forgot to mention. I skipped that part there. But what I will say is that we had a plan to actually go beyond a stage 2, where we hope to get to a stage where we had the local tennis club and various other clubs in the area turn it into some form of hub where they could take control of it and eventually get further funding for floodlit so it could be used during the winters as well. So, and also have a club house as well. So that was my idea for going for stage 2, and I think this bill, should we get it correct, would help with me to further that actual project itself. So that's one of the things that I'd be looking at as well. But one of the most important things I found out in my time in the council was community planning, and I think it's important that we make sure that there's further involvement with the communities, not just talking about public and private, also including the private sectors, finding common ground and working towards the greater good. One of my own debate last week about the Renfrewshire Witches project of 1697 was about cultural planning, where they took an idea and developed it community-led, led by the actors. Everyone got involved and supported it. Extremely successful, and can be used as a tool to regenerate various towns and areas in itself. And that's one of the things that I found extremely important, is that make sure that we get everyone involved in community planning. So one of the other things that really excites me about this is the possible ability of community compulsory purchase. I believe this could empower many groups within our community, as Sandra White's already said. In many of our constituencies we actually see, we know of town buildings and areas where we could actually do something better with them. They've lain there for years, there's nothing happened. They're either owned not by the local authority in a lot of cases, they're actually owned by private investors who have, because of various things in the economy or anything else, have left them or possibly stripped them to the bone. And I think in Paisley we have a number of examples, like the Territory Army building in the University District of Paisley and the part-time school which was part of the old Ferguson Cotton Mill. These are all things we could look at. One of the other projects we could look at as well, the Paisley Development Trust's ongoing work with the Russell Institute, a building provided to the people of Paisley by Mary Russell and eventually put to Glasgow NHS, Greater Glasgow NHS.
Member needs to start winding up.
Who have now pulled out, and the building is in a state of needing them to actually, they're trying to get involved. So in closing, Presiding Officer, if we are radical, we can really take some of our high street problems by the scruff of the neck and deal with the real issues. High streets with empty retail outlets, countless landlords sublet about 3 or 4 times, and get these buildings back into use. Of course, there needs to be a local vision and substantial plan for long-term gain, but the bill, I believe, could provide the actual foundations to encourage, engage and empower our communities.
I now call on Alison